I'm going to talk about the outside zone play, pure stretch zone play, and I want to start by defining the play and what I mean by it. So I'm talking about the stretch zone. Now on this one, running back, his angle or his aiming point is going to at least be outside the tight end, probably about a yard, 2 yards outside the tight end, pre-snap. So he'll open and he'll run at this trajectory, pre-snap. Now, on this play, if the defensive line does not move with the play, so step with their outside foot toward the direction the play is going, either reading it and playing the gap or on a slanting out, then the offensive linemen are going to overtake and reach the defensive line. Doesn't matter the position or where they're playing. Now, when I say reach, what I don't necessarily mean is if you have something like this with a 5 technique and a guard and they're working this, I don't mean the tackle's reaching the 5 and the guard's climbing the linebacker. What I mean is if the tackle and guard are working a 5 technique to a linebacker and the 5 technique doesn't flow out, he just steps up with his inside foot, he plays heavy, he plays like this, obviously already slants in, then the covered man, whether it's the tackle or tight end, is going to work heavy through the outside of the defender, really carry with that inside knee, lift it, and press it in, working through it, coming off at a good angle to block the Sam's outside number as well. And the covered man on stretch zone, outside zone, every play, the uncovered man thinks I'm going to block the defensive player I'm going to. I'm expecting to overtake it. So he'll get some depth. He'll run over there, probably over that 3rd, no later than the 4th step. He's either blocking the defensive player or he's working to the 2nd level. Same deal to block the outside half. So on this play, the running back's angle's wider. And if the defensive line does anything but slant outside with the play, or at least step with the play, staying on the covered man, at which point the covered player gets his head on the outside half or covers that part of the defensive lineman up and then works out his inside arm to make the ball cut behind his block. So not necessarily just trying to get outside at all means. It really depends how the defense plays. But in general, if the defense doesn't move, the ball is going to run outside their blocks. Again, with the technique we're talking about, not with the covered man necessarily reaching it, with the uncovered man and the covered man working in unison to overtake it with the appropriate angle so the defensive line's blocked and the linebackers are blocked at the right angle so the running back can advance past the line of scrimmage. The one technique I think separates this and the way I'm going to discuss it than hardly anyone is running is the center's technique. And I think this is the most effective way to get consistent plays when you're blocking it. The center, no matter what he's doing on a pure stretch zone, is going to do what I call a mini pull technique. He's going to get depth and run like he's pulling, like he's blocking a pin and pull, like he's pulling on a tall sweep play in his first couple steps, his first 2, maybe 3 steps, depending on how far the defensive player is. And that allows him to get his body where it needs to get to run and get in position to reach and split the defense. So on this play, it's vital. But the most important technique of this play is the center's technique. Whether he's blocking a shade by himself, whether he's blocking a 2-eye and you want to give him some help with the guard, whether he's blocking a 3 technique, who is playing in that gray area that I just described, he's kind of playing through the inside of the guard. He's not really slanting out. He's not really flowing with the play. To center and go to a pull technique, kind of a bubble technique, like he's pulling in his first couple steps, but he's not pulling around. He's simply blocking the defensive player. And this play has an enormous chance of success. Now, the 2 things that make this happen are going to be muscle memory, and repetition. So, like all things in sports and really performance, these are the two crucial elements. So how do you practice the center's block? In here, you can put some cones in alignment, something like this, and it doesn't matter either direction. Have him snap and pull, and he's got to run around the cones before he gets upfield. Same thing over here. He's got to run around the cones before he gets upfield. You can use a mat if you want to put some mats behind him or to the side. Have him run those mats. That's perfectly fine. In general, he's got to get depth, and he's got to run like he's pulling in his first couple steps and run. Why is this so crucial? Because if the center on a pure stretch zone play can get his body where it needs to get to block a loose shade, to block a 2-eye, and reach them, that's going to open up things so much. It's going to have the defense really loose. And I've got a video about the mid zone, how to block the mid zone, and I have another video how the mid zone and the stretch zone work together to really put the defense in a hard spot, because if you've loosened the defense up with the center's technique, now you can knock it over and roll it back. So the most important element to this is the center's technique, him running that mini pull technique. One thing I want to discuss too when it comes to the covered lineman. Remember, if it's a tight technique on the covered lineman, a 4 technique, a 7 technique with a tight end, the covered man's working with the uncovered man. Again, he's heavy through it. He's not running away from it. He's lifting it and carrying it, and he's coming off at a good angle to block the linebacker's outside number, so that there's a crease for the ball to run in front of this block and usually behind that block. The uncovered man in this situation, when he expects to block it, especially when it's a tighter alignment, whether it's a 4 technique, a 4-eye, a 7 technique, he's going to get some depth and run, like I talked about, really get that outside half. He's thinking, I got to get it, so I got to get a little depth and I got to run. Again, we'll talk more how you can not block it like that and you can knock it over in the mid-zone video. On this one, the outside zone, the backside, very important that you have great angles and good depth on the backside. So a backside tackle blocking a backside 3 technique, he knows the play's going pretty wide over here because the center is trying to reach the shade, or the defensive player. We might even run outside the tackle. I'm going to have to get some depth and run, and that block's not going to occur for 2 or 3 gaps over pre-snap, and it really is depth and run. And whether you're cutting and trying to work through the inside knee hard, or you're just scooping, he's got to get depth and run. And I think the best way for him to do it is get his depth, run, get all the way around, and really try to seal it. If he doesn't seal the defensive tackle off, if he just tries to get his head inside and run the defensive tackle, sometimes the defensive tackle, or if it's a tight end blocking the defensive end, can run the play down and make it. So he's got to really try to get his body in position to get the backside scoop or the cutoff. Same for an uncovered lineman working to a linebacker. He wants to cut him off. He wants to take an angle one linebacker over and then cut the linebacker off at the second level. Make the linebacker go around him, really split the defense. You can talk about if you want the guard, for instance, to give a one-arm bench press or give a stiff arm on the 3 technique for the tackle, so on and so forth. However you coach that, that's fine. Just in general, the angles have to be good on the backside. They've got to get depth and they've got to run, and the guys going to second level need to have the appropriate angle, one linebacker over, to be able to block the linebacker that they're blocking. So the 3 most important aspects of making a good stretch zone play is the center's kind of mini pull technique. Mini pull technique. The center getting his depth and running. First couple steps like he's pulling. Just run. The second is going to be the covered players' depth on the play side. Make sure that they're in position to block the defender. Remember, there's nothing worse, if you will, than if a defensive end slants in, if he kind of plays heavy, and the covered man comes off, but the uncovered blocker is not in position to get his head and his body where it needs to get, so the ball can run outside his block. And when that happens, the defense gets to have their cake and eat it too, and it cuts down the effectiveness of the play. And the third thing is the depth and angles on the backside. very, very crucial that the backside gets cut off. It can take some time to do it. They just have to get their body where it needs to get. All these take depth and width and run and muscle memory and repetition. But I can tell you, this play has a great opportunity to be, have a chance to really get a high volume of yards every time it's run if these factors are incorporated into it. So I hope this was of value to it, and I hope the other videos can be as well.